All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the 8th webinar of our 8-part series. Today is Successfully Find Customers for Your Food Business, Lessons from a Wisconsin Food Cooperative. I am Jessica Jane Spade, the Food Entrepreneurship Specialist for the UW-Madison Extension Community Food Systems Program. We have 2 speakers today. We have Kelly Maynard, our Cooperatives Development Specialist, and we also have F.L. Morris, a board treasurer and the co-founder of South Central Wisconsin Hemp Co-operative. I just want to tell you a little bit about this no-cost series of online sessions. This is for food entrepreneurs and farm-based food businesses. It's brought to you by the Food Entrepreneurship Ecosystems Development Initiative of the Extension Community Food Systems Program. We are a statewide extension program that fosters equitable, resilient, and sustainable community food systems development through research, evaluation, project-based partnerships, and programming like this. So now I want to introduce my colleague, Kelly Maynard. Kelly is a cooperative development specialist at the University of Wisconsin Center for Cooperatives. Kelly has 9 years of experience working, supporting cooperatives, 13 years of experience in food systems work. She's passionate about teaching people to work and make decisions together productively, whatever their purpose is. And Kelly also feels lucky to live, work, garden, paddle, hunt, and frolic outside Belleville, Wisconsin on the west branch of the beautiful Sugar River. So I will hand it, or actually, Kelly, I did want to just kind of like tee you up a little bit here. It's my understanding that food and agricultural cooperatives need to do a pretty intense and pretty intentional process of identifying their customers. And my understanding, at least, is that like this is partially because sometimes those customers are also owners of the business. But I do get questions from food entrepreneurs all the time that ask, how do I learn more about my customer? And how do I start engaging with my customer? So Kelly, that's the main reason we wanted to have you here today. Walk us through how you help cooperatives find and engage with their customers. Tell us a little bit about what the Center for Cooperatives does, and to introduce our wonderful speaker. So I will stop sharing and hand it over to you now, Kelly.
Thank you, Jess. Okay. Now it's time for me to share a screen.
Looks
working?
Good.
Okay.
Yep.
So what I'm going to do, well, FL, do you want me to introduce you now or later?
How about later?
Okay, we're going to go later. Okay. So today is really about South Central Wisconsin Hemp Co-op and their story that includes how they have found customers over time. My role here is to give a little bit of context for what we say when we mean cooperative and why co-ops are potentially a little bit different when we're thinking about what their business proposition is and how they can identify and attract customers. So as just a quick plug, so whether it's related to why you're joining today or some other thing in your life, the Center for Cooperatives is newly part of the Division of Extension. We've been around for over 60 years. But we just moved over into extension this calendar year in the Community Development Institute, which we're very excited about. And we have a team of co-op developers who support people starting co-ops in kind of across all sectors of the economy, all different types of cooperatives. And that's when I say that, I mean ownership types. So if anything I say today or FL says today sparks, a curiosity or question for you about co-ops, I hope that you'll reach out to us or visit our website. A big part of what we do as co-op developers is help co-ops get started. So what is a co-op? In local food systems, in food and farming spaces, in Wisconsin, I think there's just a culture of people supporting each other and collaborating. And that can take all sorts of different forms. When we say cooperative, what we're really talking about is the formal business model, where a group of people or entities incorporate as a cooperative corporation in the state of Wisconsin. You can incorporate in other states too, if that's where you're located. And there's kind of three kind of main features of what makes a cooperative businesses. So those members own and control the business, and they do that through exercising their voting power. Each member is entitled to one vote. And the co-op is really, the primary purpose of the co-op is to deliver goods and services to those owners, however they are defined, or those member owners. And then the members participate in the business in some way, and when the co-op profits or there's some other sort of surplus, the members are the ones who benefit. The goal is to return that to the membership and not to some sort of outside investor or something like that. And one of the reasons that I think co-ops, they're interesting, right? As Jess alluded to, there's, when someone is starting a new business and part of what they're going to do is generate revenue by selling something to someone, they have to think about, who is that customer? Co-ops have to do this on kind of two fronts. So a co-op first and foremost has to think about who are going to be the member owners that are going to want to participate in this business, right? And, based on what it is the co-op has said they're going to offer to them. So they have to orient themselves towards those member owners and delivering value to them and, high quality of service to them. And sometimes also there's a separate set of customers. So I'll use, I'm going to just clarify a difference here. So I'll use an example that is common, a lot of folks are aware of in Wisconsin, Organic Valley, as that's their kind of front name. They're the crop cooperative. And so their member owners are producers, right, of milk. And so they do a lot of work, but they did back in the day when they were forming, and all throughout, their history, they orient towards how do we serve these producers, these members, as best as we can. And on the flip side of that, because their business proposition is to take their members' milk and process it into things that can be sold to consumers, then they think about who are those consumers and what is it that they want to buy, and how do we, orient various types of goods and packaging and other things to sell as much, product as we can, which ultimately means returning profit and providing as much financial support to our members as possible. So in that case, right, they're serving members and they're identifying and catering to customers, and those are different. In a like food or grocery cooperative, which is a consumer type of cooperative, the consumers, the customers are the member owners, right? And so those, but sometimes the questions are not just about, how do we target who's coming into the store? There's something more that you maybe are seeking in terms of the member owner base, in terms of their engagement, since they are kind of an owner in the business, not just a customer in a store. But one of the reasons that I think that this applies to businesses that aren't co-ops is that in today's, there are a lot of challenges that we face, anyone faces in starting a business today. And one of those is identifying a customer for whoever you're going to, whatever your product or service is going to be. But there are a lot of other facets of the business. Sourcing raw materials. Perhaps you'll have employees. And one of the things that I always think about when I'm working with co-ops is that one of the ways to build a resilient business that can withstand, various challenges is through relationships. And that those, whether or not you're a co-op and whether or not, you have member owners, that, having those really strong relationships with the people who are the suppliers of your raw materials, or with your employees, or with the certified, the kitchen where you process your goods, right? Those are all parts of your business. We do get really wrapped up in, who are those customers? And that's obviously important. You know, if you can't find a customer base to buy your product, you know, then that doesn't get you very far. But these other pieces and questions and orientations of the business have a lot of are really important as well. And those are things that all co-ops have to do if their members are not also their customers. So I'm not going to belabor that point anymore. So this is a common thing that we show about how the orientation of people in a co-op, and you'll notice that this circle doesn't have customers at all. This is really about the relationship between the members and their elected board, who's managing operations, and then the various employees that are really serving the members. And when we talk about co-op governance, we're not even usually talking about customers at all. So I'll just, before I pass this over to FL, I just want to say that, you know, there are specific questions that are important to ask when you're thinking about starting a co-op. You know, the core reason people start co-ops is, well as other businesses, right, is that there's something missing. There's a need for something in your community. And then this is a commonly felt need with some other group of people. But then a lot of time is spent really identifying like how would you define membership in that co-op, and what is it that the co-op would provide them that's gonna keep them coming back, keep them coming to meetings, keep them, you know, participating in other ways, keep them, you know, paying for the goods or services that the co-op offers. So, and those are all things that our center and our co-op developers help people think through. You know, we are not experts in every sector. When I started supporting FL and the hemp co-op, I mean, I knew nothing about hemp and CBD. That was not the expertise that I brought to the table. But helping the group, you know, move through their process together was really what my role was. And with that, I will introduce FL Morris, who's going to tell you the story of the South Central Wisconsin Hemp Cooperative. FL is a serial entrepreneur, especially co-ops, has started at least 2 cooperatives, and played leadership roles in several others. She's been very active in Wisconsin Farmers Union, particularly the South Central chapter, and also at the state level. For about 18 years, she was a producer of vegetables and meat and eggs. She had a kind of whole diet CSA at her farm, which was Grassroots Farm, and then also started producing hemp. Hemp is the only agricultural product that she's still producing today. I would say she's a serial learner as well, I think, and has not a lot of fear, at least that she shows outwardly, to jump into things that she feels passionate about, and whether or not she's got a lot of background. I think she finds people and resources and is always eager to learn. And I think there's always undergirding it as a passion for creating opportunities for people to have sustainable livelihood. And that's, you know, whether it's in connection to food or something else. So with that, FL.
Thank you. That was such a flattering description of me, Kelly. Thank you. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming to this today. As Kelly said, my name is FL Morris, she, her pronouns. I am a co-founder of South Central Wisconsin Hemp Cooperative, which we also call South Central Hemp. I'm also currently serving as board treasurer, although I've worn and still wear many hats within our co-op. Our co-op member farms are located in and around Greene County, Wisconsin, I'm just an hour south of Madison. And this is within the traditional territory of the Ho-Chunk people. I'm looking forward to sharing our co-op journey as it relates to sales, marketing, and finding customers for our certified organic CBD hemp. And I want to acknowledge that a lot of our experience and challenges are specifically related to our industry, but I'm hoping that some of our story will translate more widely and be helpful to this group of food and farm entrepreneurs. I am going to be reading like a script kind of thing that I wrote, because if not, I would just be all over the board. So apologies for just reading, but I'll try to make it interesting as we go. And feel free to type questions into the chat as we go, especially if they're like relevant or I have a missing piece in something I'm saying. We'll keep an eye on that. Any like big questions we'll save to the end. So this first slide is just kind of like one of a two-part set of slides I threw in that describes our timeline with like specific points to sales and startup milestones. With the passing of the 2018 Farm Bill, hemp with the definition of 0.3% THC or less was suddenly legalized in most US states that had not already entered the legal cannabis space, and that did include Wisconsin. So consequently, a small group of farmers, including myself, gathered to cooperate on growing and selling this exciting and new to us crop with hopes of bringing basically natural relief to our community and a new revenue. Got to have like a mission or a need. That was our need. It was twofold. We love the idea of sharing a natural. Okay, that was weird. Are we still here? Did I get booted and then brought back on?
It for me, I couldn't hear you for a minute, and then your video went off, and then I was trying to figure out if it was just me or not.
Okay. No, it was weird. I got booted out completely, but then it came back right away without me doing anything. So
okay, that's the way it started to do it. So if it kind of freezes again, then we might have you turn your video off while you talk. I know I
can
hate
do
to
that right
not
now.
be able to see you.
All right, we'll do this. If it happens again, I will take the video off.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks.
So, like I was saying, our original focus was just on growing hemp, and our vision was just to sell it as biomass off the farm and get the check and, rinse, repeat. But we did have a vision of selling finished products at some point as kind of time and capacity allowed, like a CBD or South Central Hemp branded product. But apparently a lot of folks had similar aspirations, and this brand new market in Wisconsin and really throughout the country became inundated with hemp biomass at the first harvest season after the Farm Bill was signed, which was fall of 2019. So basically, when a pound of CBD biomass went from around the $40 per pound mark down to about $4 per pound, you can imagine that this caused us, our co-op, and many other producers to pivot and reconsider sales channels and the marketing strategy altogether. And now the wholesale price of CBD biomass is actually even less than $4 a pound. But at least our product was shelf stable, so this gave us a little bit of time to figure things out. Something else to mention about the CBD environment around this time is, it took Wisconsin farmers an entire growing season to enter the market, right? We had to grow the product first, or the crop first, figure out what to do with it. But companies from previously legalized cannabis states moved their products into shelves as soon as January of 2019. So we didn't exactly have a leg up in terms of competition. In June of 2020, we released our first South Central Hemp Co-op USDA certified organic products. This was 2 concentrations of tincture, which I'm going to hold up in front of the camera. We have a 2,000 milligram tincture. It's a little blurred. Okay, gotta put it in my face. And then a 1,000. So this is what our like flagship products look like. Yeah, so it's a really simple product. It's just CBD crude mixed with MCT coconut oil. That's also the beginning of our saga, trying to connect to an online storefront, attempting to drive direct sales through our website. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. As everyone is aware, the pandemic was also in full swing at this time. So leaning on the skills we already had, pre-established connections, and our charismatic and passionate CBD farmers, to run market stands was basically like out of the question. We couldn't even set up a pop-up inside community pharmacy or, in one of our co-op partners because there just wasn't face-to-face things happening at that time. Our mission to get out there and educate folks on CBD and why organic CBD is important specifically had to become like an online and a business-to-business affair. So business-to-business wise, we launched a member-led wholesale sales team and started selling CBD products through brick and mortar retailers, primarily in Wisconsin, exclusively in Wisconsin. And most of those retailers shared our values and appreciated our product and mission. Most of them ended up being co-ops or just very small businesses. In the very beginning and along the way, there have been some miscalculations that we've made. Namely, we thought that differentiation alone would be enough for us to drive sales in all categories. What I mean by that is that we were certified organic at the only time. We were the only group talking about organic certification, at least like publicly. We're a co-op of farmers. We're a generally unrepresented group of people in the cannabis space. We're local and we have a high quality product with a focus on education. We thought that would be enough. So we kind of like push marketing and those kinds of thoughts to the back end. We were like, all we got to do is grow it and it'll sell itself. But unfortunately, that was not quite enough. It wasn't enough to do the marketing and sales work for us. So I wanted to mention too, at one point, we were in talks with a national co-op that manufactures quality dried herbs and various essential oils. That was really exciting and potentially could have driven our co-op to a next level in terms of volume and revenue, but unfortunately that potential partnership fell through. Had they chosen our co-op to supply the biomass for their product line, that would have been a very different story. Ultimately, we realized we needed help in marketing and sales, and we hired our first professional marketer in the fall of 2020, sorry. Next slide, please. I didn't read the slide, but I figured you all could read it if you wanted to. So now we have some help and we continue to troubleshoot the online payment processing situation, which this is industry specific. It is not hard to set up an online storefront for your food products, for your ag products, but it was and still is potentially very difficult for CBD. CBD is considered in the high risk merchant category. So we just hit barrier after barrier as a new business trying to just get the payment processing set up. There was a separate set of rules and barriers as well as fees that are special to this category. And like I mentioned, we really couldn't get the attention of the bigger names like Square because we had no history of sales to make it worth their while. So in the meantime, throughout all of 2021, our all volunteer member-led wholesale sales team was making good retail partner connections, working with what we had and starting to get some traction. Like I mentioned, mostly with other co-ops in the state, retailing co-ops. Sales were still pretty slow, but since our products are at a high price point per unit, we were doing okay keeping up with the expenses of the business. And in terms of like who are our customers, like our end use customers, they pretty much found us. And something else I didn't mention is another huge sales channel for us is the sales that our members drive through their own sale of co-op branded product. And that's actually like pretty much our biggest category is what us as farmers, we get access to our products at cost and then we resell them and we make the gravy on top of that, but it also floats the co-op along as well. So through that sales work and communicating with our business to business sales contacts, we figured out that we were pretty much just selling to baby boomers with sleep issues and joint pain and millennials experiencing anxiety and sleep issues. So rather than choosing demographics and marketing towards them, they kind of found us based on our values or our branding or just personal relationships and connections with our farmers. By fall of 2021, we still did not have the payment processing set up. We had lots of great looks and engagement on social media from our professional marketing helper, but we didn't really have anywhere to point them to purchase aside from the retail locations or direct through our members. So pandemic rolled on. Perhaps the strain of creating or of constant treading water, our really awesome helper eventually decided to take a full-time position elsewhere. So it was back to the group of farmers. Wanting to try something new, our members were exhausted from the do-it-yourself sales and marketing. We decided to hire a local marketing company at the end of 2021 and pay a monthly fee for a 12-month period of marketing support. After several months, I'm not going to trash talk the marketing firm, but after several months of not much, the firm reached out to us and produced a rebrand idea that our members didn't really connect with. They basically wanted us to start over and do everything from scratch. And they were not able to secure the payment processing like we had hoped they could do for our current brand and our current website. Our members were not impressed and felt kind of burned by the zero return on what we felt like what was a major investment for us. The firm allowed us to exit the contract in early 2022, realizing they were not really set up to support a CBD specific business. And I should mention that by this point, our farmers had received a small payment from the co-op for biomass for, the growing of the product, but not nearly enough to cover the expenses incurred so far or the time input made by members. So we were feeling just really kind of, it was a little bit of a low point, defeated at that point. But dedicated to our brand and wanting to capitalize on our progress so far rather than start from scratch, in early summer of 2022, we connected with an independent marketer and website specialist. This person devised a new marketing strategy that included leaning into our current brand and increasing search engine optimization through blog articles. They also helped us get our online storefront set up, which is a huge victory. We actually had to form an LLC to work in tandem with the co-op to pull this off, because one of the barriers of payment processing was, basically wanting financial buy-in from all the owners, and our owners didn't want to release all of their information, put their lives on the line for the co-op. That kind of defeated the purpose. So one of us chose to do that, and that helped us get to the finish line of launching the online store. After some time, we had to pair just throughout the summer, this marketer was of great help to us, but we had to pare that relationship down because he lost some crucial teammates and was no longer able to provide the marketing services, the comprehensive marketing services, but we still have this person on board for website support. This point, it was like, yay, we have an online store. But just because we have an online store, it doesn't mean that all the people will flock to it and purchase your products. Not having anyone to continue to create the blog article content and manage the SEO didn't really help either. CBD is currently banned from many traditional online ad options also. And we're just very limited as to what we can say about our product online. So if anything, I hope, me talking about all of the barriers of hemp will, everyone who's not in the hemp space can kind of maybe feel fortunate that they don't have all this red tape of payment processing and Google ads and whatnot. We all agreed that something we could do to help with our online sales was to increase the number of products that we had. So we added a couple of lower price point products. I'm going to hold them up here. We have bath melts. Here we have a lavender bath melt. It's kind of got a wonky sticking up label, and then a lemongrass bath melt, and then a CBD infused bar soap that's like goat milk, oatmeal kind of a deal. So we increased our product line. And where am I? Oh, but didn't have those active methods of gaining attention on the website. So our sales have still been sluggish. Another huge highlight which is towards the end of my timeline here and getting to the end of my little talk, is that we are super thrilled to have brought on our first new members just a couple months ago, actually about a month ago. Our original independent contractor, the first professional marketer we brought onto the team, who's wonderful. She joined our co-op on the ownership level as a member, and their partner comes with them who has 10 years of beer and coffee sales experience. It just feels like a missing piece to have a sales and marketing professionals in on like the ownership level, because all the way since the beginning, we've been a group of farmers, some of us with direct sales, farmers market, CSA experience, some of us not. So this has been huge for us, especially that they're willing to donate some portion of time in strategizing, committee meetings, even, doing some sales for commission. And we have a lot of, because they're Madison based, we have just a lot of potential around the in-person sales and education opportunities that they can help kind of participate in. Our new plan for 2023 is pretty modest when it comes to sales projections, but we're incredibly hopeful that we may have finally identified our niche. So final slide. Thank you. This is just kind of a brief summary of our 2023 sales. I'm going to read my little tidbits here, or actually I'm going to go through this and then I'm going to read my little summary of hindsight's 2020 tips. Sorry about the dog noises. So in 2023, we're basically back to like a more informed do-it-yourself marketing strategy. But with these new members, it feels like, we do have a well-rounded team. We do plan to do local farmers markets. We're going to start small, see how it goes. Some of our members have done some markets in the area and down in Chicago and have had a lot of success with, educating, relationship building, making sales. So we're going to hit, try some festivals and focus on educating about the product, building relationships. Those relationships we hope to like convert into online sales and experiment with promotions and incentives through our website, gain repeat online customers. So like when it can't always be at farmers market, well, here's a code, Northside Farmers Market 20% off online sales. Just trying to like use in-person, on the ground marketing and to drive online sales, make the connection that way, rather than like casting the whole net across the world to try to funnel people into our website without a personal connection. We are going to continue to develop new products and try to do that with minimal investment. Just acknowledging that variety is good, and just generally tracking the effectiveness of our marketing efforts, not assuming that if it's expensive marketing, it will have a return, because that has been a big lesson for us, is like, yes, we need to invest in marketing, but just throwing the money out doesn't mean you'll get even $1 back. And just like putting, having no or go or no go points throughout your marketing spend to just track, are we getting a return on this? Is it driving sales or not? And not committing to spend a bunch of money only to find out that it didn't make you any money. So that's our plan for 2023. Is feeling really good. And then just a couple little tips I wanted to throw out, that after years of working at this, ups and downs, challenges and victories, we are still all together. It kind of feels like a family. We meet on the weekly, every other week. The meetings have like a fun atmosphere. We also are pretty, we're set up pretty formally. We use a lot of best practices thanks to Kelly and UW Center for Co-op's guidance over these years. So we have a really solid foundation that has helped a lot. And something that I just want to point out to everyone, that like, as our co-op's numbers and finance nerd, taking risks, whether for yourself or leading with people into risk, is something risky, spending money, whatever. It is terrifying when you have not done the research and run the numbers for whatever that idea is. Honing the skill of running the numbers and getting support from the many often free resources of people out there. It's been an incredible tool for us as we make our plans, and it's really helped with our willingness to experiment and pivot and take risks and make investments and take out loans, doing the math, running it through, imagining the scenario and going with it. That's how we get to the point of making decisions. So that's definitely something I recommend that people spend time doing. And then I would also just encourage folks to be flexible and like step into the need. You may find that where your product or service is getting traction is not actually where you had originally planned it to. And just to be on the lookout for like alternative ideas in terms of who your customer is, depending on the environment or like the actual situation. Yeah, so that's like, you know, the abridged version of our co-op story with the sales and marketing focus. But I guess I'm really curious to hear from other folks. And we have a question. How do we open this? Okay.
So we got,
can you
yeah, you
oh
got
yeah,
it, I found.
oh, okay. Do you want to read it?
Sure.
So it's not just my voice?
Yeah, sure. So can you share a little more about how you learned who your initial primary customers were, you know, the boomers with sleep issues, and did you survey customers, focus groups? How'd you find that out?
Good question. So because we're a co-op, we have 8. We started off with 9 member farms. We went down to 7. We're back to 8 with this new addition. But within that membership of LLCs, we have like almost 20 people. So by doing the, you know, member generated sales, having access to our finished products, we were able to collect just like a lot of anecdotal information from those 20 people who were out selling CBD to friends, customers, or coworkers. So, you know, we talked about surveys, we talked about focus groups, but ultimately, like, we had a little army of butterflies out there collecting information from friends, neighbors, coworkers, and that's what the bounce back has been. We also generated that information from just conversations with our retail partners and asking them who is attracted to our brand, who's coming in, looking at our packaging, reading our little story on the side, maybe checking out our website and being, that's the one I want to try. That's the baby boomer. Oh, and then the third piece of that is from the limited farmers market in-person sales that we've done as members, including myself. Like, that's who came up to my stand. That's who I had a 15 or even 20-minute conversation with, and then they spent $100. Those conversations, as it turned out, were really personal. And what Kelly said about relationships, so true. I mean, CBD is an intimate thing to sell. You're talking about anxiety, you're talking about sleep issues, joint pain. It's like you have to be approachable to a customer. You have to have the information and just be willing to listen to their story and tell yours, be vulnerable. Then, you know, it seems kind of shallow, but then the sale is made. So just kind of, yeah, I hope that answers the question, because that's what I got. Other questions? Anybody want to put their voice out there and ask a question? Okay, good. Todd.
Any other?
I have a question.
Great.
Okay. I'm Timby, by the way. Technically, I don't live in Wisconsin. I'm right across the border in Minnesota. The commercial kitchen that I rent from, they're the ones who told me about this program. So I've been sitting in on a lot of the Zoom calls that y'all have been doing. I'm new to this area. I just moved from the South, so I know nothing about Wisconsin, Minnesota. I didn't even know Wisconsin was as close as it was, to be honest. So all of mine is just off of nothing. So I'm curious, I'd like to hear a little bit more about how you found the different, or how you went about looking for the different people you brought in as independent contractors for marketing. So interestingly enough, my cousin and brother own a farm in Colorado. So they're in the same industry as you from that end. And so I do know that there's a lot of red tape. I actually work for another company that my 9-to-5, we have to deal with this industry, and they run into a lot of issues as well. So I'm just curious how you found, now I'm not in this industry at all. However, I am interested in learning more about it because with my brother's farm, he's interested in going into the food space with it. So I'm kind of learning from both ends, but I own a seasoning blend company. So mine is, you know, typical, like salt, pepper, everybody knows that. So I don't actually have these issues, but I'm curious how you found how you've been going about looking for a marketing team to work with in your co-op and the industry. And are you running into, I guess, a closed-minded mindset from that perspective? And then, you know, like, how are you getting around that? You know, I find finding people to help small businesses in general is harder because you don't always have the funds to pay for, you know, that really good brand strategy and all that other stuff. So I'm just curious how you went about it up here. If you could just touch on that, because you did mention that somebody ended up not working out for y'all, and then you found one that came back and became an owner. So I'm just curious that how you're finding these people.
Yeah, great question. Thanks for sharing some of your progress and whatnot too. Yeah, it was research. I mean, so what didn't work for us was going to a marketing company and saying, you tell us what to do. Because what we got back was something we really didn't want to do. And they did not check the box of the one thing that we did ask for. Can you please help us get our current website set up to do online sales? So I would say, like, as part of your search to figure out what's my marketing budget and what kind of like return do I want on that, is like actually having some goals, like, and taking that set of goals to a marketing company or a marketing individual and saying, can you help us with this? Now they're the specialist, right? And that's where sometimes you take your goals off and you say, this is what we want to do. But then the marketer's like, well, actually, I know a thing or two about a thing or two, and you don't want to do that. You want to do this other thing. For us, we thought, what do we know? And we went along with that in this one particular case. But in the end, it was just so off from our personalities and our goals and our mission.
Let's go outside.
That was a mistake.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things, you know, because again, they're the experts. You hire them for their expertise. So you expect them to be able to say, not necessarily definitively, because no expert is going to know it 100%, but you would think they would guide you in the right way for your and your budget. But, you know, like as a small business, I can't come 6 months later and be like, okay, you sent me like, this is not ever gonna, that's, you know, that's a lot of, especially with you working with members' money too. Like, how do you justify, like, how do y'all determine we're going to invest our money here without knowing what the return is going to be? Like, how do you convince your group? Because you have to convince, how big is the co-op? I guess, like, how many members do you have? How many people are making the decision, I guess, is one of those. Are you frozen? Is she frozen again?
I think you might be frozen.
Yeah, I think she's frozen. Okay. And it's okay. I don't
Well,
need
and
it.
I can answer. So until she is able to rejoin. So the co-op is small, you know, it started off with 9 members, and then there was a couple little, they got down to 7. Now they're back up to 8. And so I would say it's, you know, the co-op has been so I'm answering the question for you. I felt you can step in. The co-op has been a working, like it hasn't been a situation where it's like the members are producing product and then they have hired staff, and, you know, most of the members have been pretty involved in decision making, you know, so they're kind of, And a lot of folks, you know, they're like, well, this is a place we have to take a leap. And like so many,
Okay.
most of the members are involved in that decision. And
Gotcha.
so they have, you know, if it didn't work out, it's like, well, I guess we, you know, we
Yeah,
guess
we
we're on
tried
it.
and it didn't work. Yeah. Okay.
So,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
anything to add, FL?
Only that I also did some research with another co-op to find their marketing, strategy or plan or partner. And we ended up picking different firms for the different co-ops just because, yeah, our goals were different. Our scale was different. Our product was different. Yeah, it's hard because like what you mentioned is like, we don't have the budget to, spend $5,000 a month on marketing like a lot of our competitors are. So we did like try a little, dabble a little, but in the end, it's kind of funny that we're coming back to a more an informed do-it-yourself approach. We learned a lot along the way, and part of the learning was engaging with the professionals. But ultimately, it's like, yeah, we had plenty of barriers, I guess, too, that along the way, and our marketing support people didn't necessarily have industry specific knowledge. So I guess, yeah, my advice or my answer is really just like shop around. You're the customer, right? And I did when I would go in, like, this is how the process works with a marketing firm. You approach them, you tell them your story. They look through all of whatever marketing materials you have, anything that you've made that's a graphic or labels or social media accounts. They kind of examine what you have, and then they give you a report back like, this is what they see and this is what they think that you should do from now, and then you get to decide if you want to go with them. We did that for between the two co-ops. I probably like interviewed maybe 5 different firms, and they all came up with a different, slightly different strategy at a different price point. And that's where you can kind of piecemeal it together from there, and or just choose one and see how it goes. So
Thank you.
yeah.
And I'll just add on top of that, I think, one of the kind of core reasons that this group of folks came together to form a co-op to begin with was to share information with each other. And initially, a lot of that was about production and seed sourcing, and but it has evolved over time to be sharing information about everything related to trying to, from production to, harvest to trying to sell and all of it. And so the fact that it is a group of people, they, all experiencing things out in the world, and that they're all, a lot of folks are pretty heavily involved in some way in trying to make sales happen. And then they bring that information back to the group and like, all right, what are you learning? What are you learning? And then they kind of put it together. And so that there is that power in it being a group of people who can pool experiences to inform, a next step, a next strategy.
And also like check out for a time when life is too busy, but that doesn't mean that everything stops, right? It's like we have this thing when one of us has to step aside and focus on something else, other people step up. And it's just kind of this revolving door of effort that seems to work pretty well for us. Just a big advantage of doing this as a group is if you need to focus on something else, it doesn't mean that the train stops. Might slow down a little, but it's a huge advantage. And I think, a lot of CBD businesses have just left because they can't do how it's a money pit. But ours has stayed together because we have each other, and we've been pretty conservative in how much we grew, and how big of a loan we took out. And so there's something to be said for just acknowledging that it's going to take a while to grow a business, and really just doing the baby steps and building it over time, unless you feel really confident that taking out all the funding that you need and starting big is the way to go. For us, we didn't go that direction, although we explored that direction. I'm really glad that we have just baby stepped it, because for all the companies out there that invested big, they're hurting. They're done. They sold their equipment. They're taking the loss, sometimes a huge loss. So
I want to point out in the chat, someone offered that UW has a lot of marketing teams throughout Wisconsin. So this person's working with UW Whitewater marketing program for their business. So, FL alluded to quite a few free resources out there. So they've been mentioned, some scores and, SCORE, SBDCs, marketing programs at schools. UW-Madison has the Law and Entrepreneurship Clinic, which Hemp Co-op didn't use them, but other co-ops you've been involved with have used the Law and Entrepreneurship Clinic. And I don't know if related to legal support for new businesses. So we are lucky. Finance Institute, there are quite a few things out there that you can tap into. And some of them have already been mentioned in other webinars.
Are those available to everybody? Like I said, I don't live in Wisconsin and never went to UW. I don't have much to this
I
area.
would explore. I mean, I think they definitely focus on in Wisconsin, and some of them may be required to, emphasize in Wisconsin, but I would, it's worth exploring. Minnesota is another another really big, institution. And so, but the SBDCs, that's like a
food finance is, they help people all around the region. That would be that's an amazing resource with really smart people who make all of this information seem more accessible or easy to comprehend. That they're a great organization. I think they have a lot of I know they have free consultants, but they have a whole boot camp series. That'd be a great thing to look into for the herbs and for the herb business. That's within their scope of work to support people.
And they'll know who to, if it's something that they can't, the SBDC, even in Wisconsin, will know who to put you in touch with in Minnesota. And as FL said, the FFI Food Finance Institute, that is one of our other close partners, and they work nationwide. Absolutely.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. I'll look them up.
Another entity to look up, and not just the Agriculture Utilization Research Institute, AURI. They're Minnesota based, and they have kind of like areas of expertise and emphasis, but they're a big nonprofit, and so I don't know what your specific business proposition is, and I don't know if they do anything in hemp space, but anyways, they support a lot of entrepreneurs.
Thanks. I'll look at that too.
Any other final questions? Any final words from Kelly or FL before I give you a round of applause?
Just thanks.
I put up this resources slide just so people, we're pretty easy to find on the web, but we have a website with a lot of resources on it. It can sometimes feel overwhelming. So you feel free to just email me, reach out and be like, I think I'm looking for something about this. What do you have? So happy to point you in the right direction.
Yeah, I was just on that site. I was talking to someone about a retreat center idea, and we went into the PDF of comparing different entity types, because she's trying to figure out, should it be a nonprofit? Should it be an LLC? Is this a co-op model? So there's tons of great stuff on the site. And also I just want to offer to folks, I'm available. I love talking to people about their business ideas and walking them through, at any phase. If anyone just wants to chat, I just supporting folks starting businesses. So especially in food and ag space. So feel free to reach out.
Thank you. Well, let's give Kelly and FL a round of applause. It's hard to do on Zoom, but I like to at least let you know you're appreciated. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Lauren and I are going to press. Oh yeah, you could do Zoom applause this way. Yay! Beautiful. We're going to end recording, but then I have a few other things to say.